The crisp evening air carried the sound of laughter and music from the fraternity house. Inside, the game had escalated. A deck of cards was scattered across the coffee table amidst empty soda cans and chip bags. The air smelled of cheap beer and ambition. Jake leaned back into the plush leather sofa, long legs stretched out. Between his fingers was the card that sealed his fate. The Joker. The red one. The King. A collective hush fell over the room. Someone, emboldened by cheap liquor, had pulled a dare from the deck. "Read it," they shouted. Jake's jaw tightened. He held the small slip of paper, his voice flat. "Kiss the person seated 4 to your left." A chorus of whoops and whistles erupted. Heads turned, counting off shoulders and knees. The counting stopped. All eyes, wide with a mix of shock and glee, landed on Alex. Alex had been trying to disappear into the corner of the sectional, nursing a bottle of water. He watched the familiar storm cloud gather over Jake's expression, saw the way his eyes narrowed. It was the same look he'd gotten used to over the past semester. A look that said he was something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of a shoe. The room's energy shifted. The music from the speakers felt suddenly too loud. One of the girls, Chloe, who'd been orbiting Jake all night, broke the silence with a nervous laugh. "Come on, that's too much. Let's pick another one." A few murmurs of agreement, but they were drowned out by the growing chant. "Quiche! Quiche! Quiche!" Alex finally lifted his gaze from the patterned rug. Jake was staring directly at him now, a hard, flinty stare. Alex offered a thin, deliberate smile. "Your game. Your problem. Be a man about it or walk away." In the next breath, Jake was on his feet. He moved with a startling, athletic quickness, crossing the room in 3 long strides. He loomed over Alex, blocking the light from the floor lamp, casting everything into shadow. He was all tense shoulders and clenched fists. The chanting died. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchenette. Jake's voice was low, strained, as if forced through gritted teeth. "Is this okay?" His eyes were locked on Alex's, intense and unreadable. Like a cornered animal, Alex thought, all fight and no flight. Alex let the smile widen. A challenge. Sure. Why not? The agreement was barely out of his mouth before Jake descended. It wasn't gentle. It was a collision. A hard, searing press of lips that was over almost before it began. The heat of it, the surprising softness against the force, lingered for a fractured second. Then Jake recoiled as if burned. He straightened up, his face a mask of something between panic and fury, and without a word, he turned and shoved his way out of the room, letting the heavy door slam shut behind him. The silence he left was profound, broken only by a sharp, collective intake of breath. Alex touched his lips, still feeling the phantom pressure. By the time he'd walked back to the dorm under the chilly campus streetlights, his phone was buzzing relentlessly. A text from his best friend, Leo. "Dude, tell me it's not true. You and Jake?" Alex typed back it was a dare. It lasted half a second. Half a second with Jake Miller. "Do you have any idea what the campus gossip blogs are saying? He's like the holy grail. He's also famously not a fan of guys who like guys. So, end of story." Alex pushed open the door to their shared dorm room. The overhead light was off, only the blue glow of a laptop screen illuminating their roommate, Ethan. And emerging from the steamy bathroom, a towel wrapped securely around his waist, another clutched in his hands to vigorously dry his hair, was Jake. He froze mid-motion. His eyes met Alex's across the small, cluttered space. For a heartbeat, they just stared. Then, with a speed that was almost comical, Jake dropped the towel from his head, yanked his sneakers off without untying them, and vaulted into his raised bed, yanking the privacy curtain closed with a sharp zip. Ethan swiveled in his desk chair, raising an eyebrow. Trouble in paradise? Alex just shook his head, dropping his backpack by his desk. His "I'm uncomfortable with your existence" thing acting up again? Ethan whispered. Alex gave a non-committal shrug. He'd never hidden who he was. When a girl from his calculus study group had asked him out during freshman orientation, he'd politely explained he was gay. The news had spread through the dorm gossip chain with impressive speed, reaching Jake by the end of the first week. The distance between them had solidified into a permanent wall. Now, even in their shared space, Jake moved like a ghost, appearing only when Alex was asleep or absent, treating the sight of him in a simple t-shirt and sweatpants like a personal affront. Later, after his own shower, Alex stepped out into the main room, a towel around his hips, his skin still damp. He thought the room was empty. Ethan's curtain was drawn, and Jake had been a silent lump in his bunk for an hour. The sudden, sharp intake of breath made him jump. Jake was at the small kitchenette sink, filling a water glass. He'd gone rigid, his back to Alex. Put some clothes on, Jake ground out, not turning around. Alex looked down at himself. It's a towel. We're in a dorm. Just, could you not? Jake's voice was strained. A familiar frustration bubbled up. With a sigh, Alex grabbed the towel he'd used on his hair and draped it over his shoulders like a shawl. Better? Jake didn't answer. He set the glass down with a thud and, still refusing to look, retreated to his bunk in 2 long strides, the bed frame groaning under his weight. In political science the next morning, Leo elbowed him, nodding subtly toward the back of the lecture hall. He's doing it again. Alex didn't need to turn to know. He could feel the weight of Jake's stare between his shoulder blades, a persistent, prickling heat. It had been 2 days of this. You think the kiss did something? Leo murmured, a mischievous glint in his eye. Alex snorted. Do you believe I'm a secret superhero? Or do you believe Jake Miller had a life-altering gay awakening from a 1-second peck? Leo conceded with a laugh. Still, the constant surveillance was grating. Jake had become a ghost in their room, vanishing before Alex woke, returning long after he'd fallen asleep. Felt intentional, avoidant. The opportunity came that evening, a crisp fall night. Alex was returning from the campus mail center, a package under his arm, when he saw the familiar broad-shouldered silhouette ahead on the path lined with oak trees. Before Jake could execute his usual evasive maneuver, Alex closed the distance and caught his wrist. Jake spun around, his expression shifting from surprise to immediate tension. Alex could feel the corded muscle in his forearm tighten. What do you want? The words were clipped. Alex released him. We need to talk. You've been staring holes in me for days. Do you have a problem? Jake's gaze dropped. The amber glow of the path lights caught the strong line of his jaw, the curve of his mouth. He was objectively stunning. And now, standing closer than they had in months, Alex could see the rapid pulse at the base of his throat. He watched, baffled, as Jake's eyes flickered down, not to meet his, but to settle on his lips. He seemed lost in the sight. A strange, cold trickle of understanding dripped down Alex's spine. No. He took a careful step back. The movement seemed to snap Jake out of his trance. His eyes lifted, meeting Alex's with a new, unsettling directness. It was my first kiss, Jake said, his voice quiet. Alex blinked. Of all the things he'd expected, anger, a threat, a demand to be left alone, this wasn't it. The statement hung in the cool air between them, vulnerable and absurd. Okay, Alex said slowly, crossing his arms. And you're the one who chose the dare. You're the one who charged over and did it. Jake looked down at his own hands, flexing them. The muscles in his forearms shifted. I'm not giving you a hard time. I've just been thinking. About what? Retaliation? Jake's head shot up. No. The word was firm. Then softer, just thinking. Alex nodded, a sense of unease settling in his gut. Something in Jake's demeanor had fundamentally shifted. Okay, well, think less murderously. The strange tension seemed to ease after that. Jake stopped the intense staring in class. A fragile, normal rhythm returned to their shared living space. And then, the campus buzzed with new gossip. Chloe from the sorority was openly pursuing Jake. One night, Alex returned to the dorm to hear Ethan's voice through the door. "Chloe's a knockout, man. You're seriously not interested?" He pushed the door open. Jake, who had been sitting calmly at his desk, shot up as if electrocuted. In one fluid, panicked motion, he kicked off his shoes and scrambled up into his bed, the curtain whipping shut. The desk chair wobbled from the force. Alex and Ethan exchanged a long, silent look. The weekend arrived. Leo had convinced him to join a group camping trip in the state park, promising a quiet escape. It was neither quiet nor an escape. A dozen people crowded around a roaring bonfire, grilling burgers and hot dogs. Leo, with a conspiratorial wink, had called it a social mixer. Alex found a folding chair at the edge of the firelight and pulled out his phone, opting for digital solitude. He stayed the night in his tent, pleading a headache when the group decided on a sunrise hike, and headed back to campus early. He pushed open the dorm room door to a scene of unexpected domestic chaos. Jake stood frozen in the middle of the room, a towel slung low around his hips, water droplets still tracing paths down the sculpted planes of his chest and abdomen. He held a bottle of body spray caught in the act. For a long second, they just stared. Alex recovered first, a slow grin spreading across his face. He stepped fully inside and closed the door softly behind him. "Forgot your fortress where?" A flush spread from Jake's neck to his ears. He turned and disappeared into the bathroom, shutting the door with a definitive click. Ethan's sleepy head poked out from his bunk. "What's with the earthquake?" Jake was emerging from his aquatic habitat, Alex said, dropping his backpack. When Jake finally emerged, he was armored in a full set of flannel pajamas, buttoned to the throat. Later that week, after a pleasant enough dinner with a friendly senior from his art history class named Marcus, Alex was walking back to the dorm, texting Leo. "Date was fine. He's nice. Nice is boring. You need sparks. Sparks are overrated." He was typing a reply, head down, when he nearly walked into a solid wall of a person on the stairwell landing. He stumbled back, his heart lurching. "Jesus, Jake. What is your problem?" Jake stood under the harsh fluorescent light, dressed in sweatpants and a tight gray t-shirt. He said nothing, just looked at Alex, his expression dark and unreadable. "Are you going to move? Or is this a new performance art piece?" In answer, Jake's hand shot out, closing around Alex's wrist. The grip was firm, unyielding. He pulled Alex up the last few steps and into the shadowy alcove by the fire extinguisher, pinning him against the cool cinderblock wall. One large hand caged Alex's wrists above his head. The other came up to tilt his chin, forcing eye contact. "You went out with him." Jake's voice was a rough whisper, his breath warm against Alex's face. "With Marcus?" "Yeah. What's it to you?" Alex tried to twist free, but Jake was immovable. "You have to take responsibility." Alex barked a laugh. "For what? My first kiss. How exactly? You want me to pay for therapy?" Jake's gaze was unwavering, intense. His chest rose and fell quickly. "Kiss me again." "What? No. You said you would. That night." "I said the dare was okay. There's a difference." Jake leaned in closer, his nose almost brushing Alex's. The scent of his clean sweat and soap was overwhelming. "I like you." The words, spoken so low and so directly, short-circuited Alex's brain. "You what?" "Like, you." Each word was a deliberate hammer strike. Alex reached up with his free hand, pressing it to Jake's forehead. "You have a fever. You're delirious." Jake didn't flinch. He just held that gaze, earnest and terrifyingly serious. Alex's own pulse began to thunder, a traitorous rhythm he was sure Jake could feel where their bodies pressed together. With a surge of panic, he shoved against the solid chest. Jake let him go, and Alex fled, taking the stairs two at a time, his own heartbeat roaring in his ears. The next morning, the world had turned upside down. Jake returned from his run, damp with sweat, and placed a paper bag containing a blueberry muffin and a coffee on Alex's desk. Later, after a shower, he paraded around the room in just his towel for a solid 5 minutes, pretending to look for a textbook, while Ethan's jaw hung open. "What is happening?" Ethan mouthed at Alex. Alex finally marched over to where Jake was now, meticulously buttoning a denim shirt. "What are you doing?" Jake finished with the last button and looked him squarely in the eye. "I'm pursuing you." His voice carried clearly in the small room. Ethan choked on his orange juice. Alex took a deep, steadying breath. "You've lost your mind." In class, Leo saved him a seat, buzzing with questions. Before Alex could answer, the chair beside him scraped back. Jake sat down, arranging his notebooks with a calm efficiency. The entire row fell silent. Leo's texts blew up his phone. "He says he likes me. He's pursuing me. No way." The plot twist. "I knew it." "Okay, new strategy. Play hard to get." "He's a former straight guy. He'll either panic and run or double down." "This is fascinating." Jake did double down. He became a quiet, persistent shadow. The campus forums exploded. The speculation was vicious. A torrent of anonymous files suggesting Alex had somehow manipulated or tricked him. It was exhausting. Marcus texted, suggesting a new sci-fi movie. Alex typed a polite refusal, citing workload. He felt a presence behind him in the library aisle. "How about lunch, then?" Marcus said, smiling, phone in hand. "Give a guy a chance?" They sat in the bustling cafeteria. Alex hadn't even taken his second bite when Jake appeared, sliding onto the bench beside him with a quiet nod, and began eating his own salad. Alex decided to ignore him. Then Chloe was there, placing a bottle of iced tea next to Jake's tray. "The team dinner is tonight. You'll be there, right?" Her voice was sweet, hopeful. Jake wordlessly pushed the bottle back toward her. She flinched, then recovered with a tight smile and walked away. After Marcus left for a study group, Jake pulled a bottle of water from his bag and offered it. Alex shook his head. "I'm good, thanks." Jake's shoulders slumped. He stared at his own hands. "Why not?" The question was quiet, almost wounded. "You went with him. You drink water with him. I'm trying to." He glanced up, and the expression in his eyes was startling. Not the old anger or even the intense focus, but something vulnerable, almost pleading. The fierce, proud athlete looked soft. It was more unnerving than any glare. Alex grabbed his tray and made a quick exit. Later, Leo sent a screenshot. The hateful forum threads had vanished. In their place was a single post from a verified account, Jake Miller. It contained no text, just a series of blurred screenshots highlighting the usernames of the most toxic posters. A silent, powerful rebuke. That night, Alex's phone rang. It was Leo, sounding strangely out of breath. "I found him. You need to come get him." "Found who?" "Why me?" "Jake. He's not in good shape. He's by the oak grove near your dorm. I do it, but I've got a thing. If you don't come, he's sleeping on the grass." The line went dead. Alex cursed, grabbing his keycard. The grove was dark, the old trees casting deep shadows. Jake was sitting slumped at the base of the largest oak, head in his hands. "Hey, Miller. Time to go." Jake looked up. His eyes were unfocused, but they cleared slightly when they landed on Alex. A slow, dazed smile spread across his face. He struggled to his feet, swaying. Alex moved to support him, but Jake caught his wrist instead, his grip surprisingly firm. "You came. Unfortunately. Can you walk?" Jake nodded, his expression suddenly serious. "With you." It was a slow, stumbling journey back to the dorm. Once inside, Alex steered him toward the bathroom. "Shower. You smell like a brewery." Jake obeyed with a docility that was utterly foreign. Alex heard the water run. 15 minutes later, the door opened. Jake stood there, the towel around his waist clinging to damp skin, his hair dripping onto his broad shoulders. Alex thrust a bundle of sleep clothes at him. "Put these on. Go to sleep." Jake took the clothes but didn't move. He just looked at Alex, his gaze soft and unwavering. Then, with a sudden, decisive movement, he took Alex's hand and pressed it flat against his own bare chest, right over his heart. The skin was warm and damp, the muscle firm underneath. "You can," he said, his words slightly slurred but earnest. Alex's hand went rigid. "Can what?" "Touch. You look. You can touch." Jake leaned into the contact, his skin hot against Alex's palm. A wave of heat flooded Alex's face. He snatched his hand back. I don't go to sleep, Jake." Jake's face fell, that wounded look returning. "You don't like it?" Alex ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. "It's not about like or not like. Just get some rest, okay?" "I like you," Jake murmured, his voice thick. "So much. I know. A lot. Okay. Only you." The words were a sleepy, heartfelt whisper. Alex felt his resolve melting under the sheer, absurd force of this drunken confession. "All right. I hear you. Now, for the love of God, go to bed." He managed to herd Jake toward his bunk. The last thing he saw before Jake finally pulled his curtain closed was that soft, unwavering smile directed solely at him. The next morning, Jake was gone before Alex woke. He returned just as Alex was brushing his teeth, carrying a paper bag. He set a breakfast sandwich and a fresh coffee on Alex's desk. "For last night," he said, his voice clear and sober. "Thank you." His ears were tinged with pink. So he remembered everything. Leo called as Alex was eating the sandwich. "Okay, Major T. Chloe got a bunch of her friends to get Jake drunk at the team thing last night, tried to confess her love. He literally pushed her away. Then she started bad-mouthing you, and he just walked out." Alex glanced at Jake, who was methodically organizing his gym bag. So? How was your night with Prince Charming?" "Informative," Alex said vaguely. A few days later, Alex and Leo were walking back from an off-campus thrift store, bags in hand. They cut across the edge of the outdoor basketball courts. "Hey, isn't that," Leo began. Alex heard the distinctive, rushing sound of air displaced by a fast-moving object. He turned his head just as the basketball connected with his temple with a sickening thwack. The world tilted. He stumbled, Leo's shout sounding distant. Pain, sharp and bright, radiated from the point of impact. "Alex! Oh my God! We need to get you to the clinic!" Leo tried to help him stand. Before Alex could find his balance, someone was there, sweeping him off his feet entirely. He was being cradled against a solid, heaving chest, one strong arm under his knees, the other supporting his back, a large hand carefully shielding his throbbing head. The scent of sport detergent and clean sweat filled his senses. Jake. He was running, his breathing ragged but even, his stride eating up the pavement. Alex let his head loll against Jake's shoulder, the world swimming in and out of focus. At the campus clinic, the diagnosis was a mild concussion. Rest, observation. In the quiet, white-walled room, Leo was fuming. "That was no accident. I saw her throw it. Chloe. I'm calling campus security." Alex, nauseous and head-pounding, nodded weakly. Leo stepped out to make the call. Jake stood by the bed, his t-shirt damp with sweat, his expression stormy. When his eyes met Alex's, they softened with a worry so raw it was startling. "You should sleep," he said, his voice low. "I'll be right here." Alex closed his eyes, and for the first time since the impact, he felt safe. The next day, with a bandage on his forehead, they gave statements. Security camera footage from the court made the intent clear. Chloe, faced with the evidence, crumbled from defiance to tearful apology. She was given a formal and put on probation. Outside the security office, she marched up to Jake, her face a mask of tragic appeal. "I'm so sorry, Jake." "Tell him," Jake said, nodding toward Alex. She clenched her jaw, silent. "Forget it," Alex said, turning to leave. He didn't need her hollow words. She snapped. She lunged forward, pointing a trembling finger at Alex. "You! This is your fault. You with your tricks." Alex stared. The sheer audacity cut through his headache. Jake moved instantly, stepping in front of Alex, taking his hand. "Shut your mouth. Now, you're defending him?" She shrieked, her composure shattering. "He turned you into this. It's disgusting." A cold laugh escaped Alex. "What's disgusting? That he's a man? Or that he doesn't want you?" Her face purpled with rage. In that moment, fueled by a mix of painkillers and pure spite, Alex acted. He reached up, curled his fingers into the fabric of Jake's shirt at the nape of his neck, and pulled him down. "Can I?" he asked, the ghost of their first words hanging between them. Jake's eyes widened, stunned. Alex didn't wait for an answer. He tugged, bringing Jake's mouth to his and kissing him soundly. Not a peck, but a firm, deliberate press. He pulled back with a soft smack. "So?" Alex asked, looking up at Jake. "How's liking a guy working out for you?" A slow, brilliant smile broke across Jake's face, transforming it completely. "Liking you," he said, his voice full of wonder, "is fantastic." Chloe made a strangled sound and fled. Alex went to release his hold, but Jake caught his wrist, placing Alex's arm back around his own neck. He slid his own arm around Alex's waist, pulling him close. "And?" he prompted, his voice a low rumble. "And what? You kissed me." "I did." Jake's brow furrowed slightly. "So?" Alex tilted his head, feigning innocence. "So?" There was a long pause. Jake's confident demeanor faltered, replaced by that hesitant, hopeful look. "You have to take responsibility," he said, the words almost shy. Alex's heart did a slow, heavy roll in his chest. He smiled. "Okay." Jake blinked. "Really?" "Yes." "You mean it?" "I do. You're my boyfriend." "Seems that way." A grin threatened to split Jake's face. He leaned in, his forehead resting against Alex's. Then, "Can you delete Marcus's number?" Alex burst out laughing. The news traveled fast. Leo called before they'd even made it back to the dorm. "I knew it. I totally called it." "You're a genius," Alex said dryly, smiling as Jake laced their fingers together. "I am. So what about that senior? Marcus? I let him down easy." "Good." Jake was insanely jealous of him. Alex paused. "How would you know that?" Leo's chuckle was smug. "You want to know?" Before Alex could press him, Jake gently took the phone from his hand, ended the call, and tossed it onto the nearby couch. Then his hands were framing Alex's face, and he was kissing him, deeply, thoroughly, until the room spun for reasons having nothing to do with a concussion. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Jake nuzzled against his ear. "Don't think about him," he murmured. "Just think about me." Later, much later, Alex would learn the truth. That Jake's initial coldness had been a confused reaction to an immediate, terrifying attraction. That the dare had been a revelation, not a violation. That Leo, self-appointed guardian of campus romance, had taken the bewildered, lovesick athlete under his wing for a crash course in how to not scare off Alex. That the drunken night by the oak tree had been a staged, if poorly executed, part of the plan. But in that moment, as Jake kissed him again, soft and insistent, all Alex could think was that the view from up close, without any walls between them, was infinitely better.